Hey, what's going on, everybody? Brad here, back with another Let's Talk Jurassic here from the Jurassic Park Podcast. Now, recently, you may have seen some little controversy stirring up in the Jurassic fan community. It's been a little crazy, guys, right? Wouldn't you say? Yeah, it's been an adventure this past week. And it shouldn't really be a surprise what's going on, per se. Some of the things are kind of revelatory, but what are you going to do? So, we are going to be talking about Jurassic canon across the series, and just kind of break it down as best as we can. The idea of canon, what it is, how it relates to all of the different mediums that we have here for the franchise. What we can kind of expect moving forward, if anything. And I just want to get a lot of your thoughts as well. So if you guys have any kind of, insight or your over ideas, what do you think canon means? Let me know in the comment section or in the live chat over there, I think. But let me know in the live chat what you think about canon. Do you like canon? Do you want canon? Do you not care about canon? This is something that I asked a lot of people over on Twitter, so we'll get to those later on. In the discussion, we reached out, asked everybody a poll question, and also wanted some comments as well. So I'll probably go through some of those over on Twitter later on. But if you guys have any comments or concerns about canon, let me know, and we'll try to discuss them throughout the episode here. I do have a lot of stuff planned for us, so I just kind of want to go over canon because recently Colin Trevorrow made some comments about Jurassic World Live Tour. We'll get to that in a little bit. So I know people are already asking, what's going on? What happened with the canon? So Colin made some comments about the live tour, which were kind of surprising. And they were very, very minimal, and it might have just gone over your head or you just didn't even know what was going on really, but he made some comments that we'll get to in a second. But I just want to talk about canon in general. Do you guys know what canon is? Because I feel like a lot of people are kind of confused as to what canon is when it comes to film. It is kind of like a weird term, and it's not something that the general audiences really throw around all that much, I don't think. It's really when you're like a hardcore fan of something, you want canon, or you may want canon. So, for instance, I'm going to go over to... We're just going to straight up go over to Wikipedia because why not? You know, it's a good place to go when you want to reference something, as long as it's not schoolwork, guys. Keep it out of your schoolwork. I don't know. Do the teachers still care about stuff? But we have canon for fiction here. So fictional material. You have in fiction, canon is the material accepted as officially part of the story in the fictional universe of that story. It is often contrasted with or used as the basis for works of fan fiction. The alternative terms mythology, timeline, universe, continuity are often used, with the first of these being used especially to refer to a richly detailed fictional canon requiring a large degree of suspension of disbelief. An entire imagery, world, and history, while the latter two typically refer to a single arc where all events are directly connected chronologically. Other times, the word can mean to be acknowledged by the creators. So I'll just stick with that for now. So it's material accepted as officially part of the universe, the fictional universe. So I know this might be very simple rules for a lot of you guys that you already know, but I just kind of want to go over it for anybody that may be tuning in that doesn't necessarily understand what canon is. So canon, like we're talking about here with Jurassic, material that is accepted as officially part of the story. So there's a few things that we could discuss later on as to what is officially part of the Jurassic story. Jurassic has a few things. It's really not all that expansive, to be honest. It's It's got its things, and that's it. It's not like other universes that are hugely rich and wealth. Got a wealth of material to dive into. So it does also say it's often contrasted with or used as the basis for fan fiction. Now, don't really confuse that statement. That's basically saying fan fiction will take the continuity of canon and use it for their works of fan fiction. So it really has nothing to do with fan fiction outside of people who write fan fiction use that continuity. So yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's the ability to create a universe, a timeline, where the continuity is pretty seamless as it can be. Of course, there are exceptions where, with the amount of different writers, different producers, different directors, different actors, whoever it may be, you will have a difference here and there. Is it enough to break the world completely? No, probably not. Sometimes maybe it is, but not always. And most times you can usually say, "Oh, that's weird. I thought something else happened in the other one." Whatever. It's not really all that big of a deal. So that is canon. Should there be levels of canon? That's an interesting thing that I don't necessarily agree with all that much. I don't feel like there should be levels of canon. Canon is material that's accepted as officially part of the story. So if there's a level of canon, if there's a difference in the canon, it's hard to even describe it that way because there isn't a difference. Canon is canon. So it is what it is. You can't really have a different level. I know there are people that are describing canon as different levels. Hard canon. You have soft canon. You have head canon. You have all these different things. But canon is canon. So there's no really way around that, per se. I know that's kind of like garbled and a lot of, doesn't really make sense. But we'll dive into it a little bit deeper. But there's a lot of conversation about different levels of canon. So people are saying right now, and this is not just in the Jurassic community, this is spread across film and fiction in general, writing, whatever it may be. Comics are a big thing for canon, of course. But we'll just talk about these different breakdowns of the levels of canon. So you have hard. Hard canon this is firm. This is something that is canon. It's in the universe. It's whatever that universe may be. This is fully part of that universe. Soft canon is pretty much being described as, well, it is in that universe, but it's not necessarily part of the universe. So it's kind of like a mix. It's kind of got both levels in there. It is, but it isn't. I don't know if you get that really. It's kind of hard to line up these things because, like I said, canon is the material. There's no way around that. Non-canon it just means that these things didn't necessarily happen ever. These are not part of the story. So that's the best I can really describe it. It's soft canon to me is non-canon. It's not anything. Soft canon, if it doesn't take place in canon, then it's not canon. I've already said canon way too many times. And then there's also, like I said before, head canon. So head canon it's not a real thing either. This is not an official thing, like soft canon, not an official thing. Head canon is basically, for instance, I like Jurassic Park. Let's say I don't like The Lost World, but I like Jurassic Park 3, and then I don't like Jurassic World, but I like Fallen Kingdom. So I'm going to take those three films, JP1, JP3, and Fallen Kingdom. Those are the ones that I am only going to acknowledge. I don't care about all the other ones. I don't care about the books. I don't care about the games. I don't care about anything. I just want those three films in my head canon for the rest of the time. That is not me speaking personally, but I'm just as an example. So that is a thing. Or, you can pick and choose. You can love all the movies if you want or all the books, and you can pick and choose different things. So that is a pretty common level, I guess you could say. It's a pretty common occurrence, and listening to a lot of people talk about canon over the past week, it really feels like a lot of people are in the camp of, I just have my own ideas. Whatever happens, happens. Like, if I want to think that somebody's Muldoon never died, he never was eaten by raptors, then that's my headcanon. But that's the case, And some things we like to assume. Sometimes a storyline or an idea isn't very clear in a piece, a medium, a film, whatever. So sometimes you want to take that idea and put it into your headcanon. Or for some instances, I know a lot of people like to take a film from a completely different story and throw it into this film and just be like, oh, well, this is part of my headcanon. Again, headcanon and soft canon, not canon. Not canon. So the only thing that is canon, right? So I want to go into some things that we have here. I guess as canon for the Jurassic series. All right, so you guys know Jurassic started off with a series of novels here. We have the Jurassic Park novel by Michael Crichton, right? So that's where everything started. And then things took off from there. We got films, rides, and everything. Another novel, we got The Lost World. So here are the two novels that we have. These two things are their own universe, okay? They don't pertain to the movies at all. So you can't interchange them. You can't say, well, this is something that I like, and this is something I like, blah, 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 and this thing happened, and that thing happened. These two things here are so different from the movies that you can't really combine the two. And there's so many discrepancies between the novels and the films that to interchange them, it doesn't really work, right? It just doesn't work because characters die off. Characters are, killed certain ways, and then they're not killed in the movies or whatever that may be. The Lost World is almost completely different. Some characters exist, some don't. So there's all those things that you can't really interchange the two, the film canon and the novel canon. So novel canon is something that is just completely separate, right? It doesn't pertain. So when we're talking about the films, I know a lot of people like to interject what happened in the novels, and I think that's a valuable resource for comparing outcomes and ideas and theories. But when really analyzing the movies, you almost can't really bring the books into play all that much. So we do have the movies, right? We have the film canon. Jurassic Park, The Lost World, JP3, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and to be announced probably next year sometime, Jurassic World 3, Jurassic Park 6, whatever you want to call it. So that is the film canon. And this is the hard canon. So this is what we know as truth in the Jurassic series, right? This is what exists. You can't deny it. If you don't like Jurassic Park 3, sure, that's your own, your own thing. You can do that. You can not like Jurassic Park 3, but it did happen. So in terms of discussing plot lines and outcomes, and even discussing other material, it happened. So in the case of Jurassic Park 6, Jurassic World 3, when that comes out and we're theorizing as to what happened to Grant or Ellie, or, if any other characters show up, we're going to have to take into account Jurassic Park 3 because it happened, it exists, it was a real produced thing. None of these things were erased. I know a lot of people were nervous and afraid that once Jurassic World came out, there was no mention of The Lost World or Jurassic Park 3. And I think there was some quote or something like that by Derek Connolly or Colin. I forget exactly what happened, but there was a lot of fear that those two films were erased from existence. They weren't. They were not, as you most likely know. They do still count. They are still there. They did happen. But when Jurassic World came out, there was no reason to discuss what happened. It's not like they're going to take a moment out to say, oh, you remember you remember that? Hey, Owen, you remember that time that we heard the story about Ian Malcolm going to Isla Sorna? And no, why would they say that? There's no reason to say that. Or, hey guys, you remember that kid, Eric Kirby? He got stuck on Sorna. Like, why would they discuss it? Jurassic World took place on Nublar. There's not really any reason to kind of go into what happened on Sorna. Both those movies took place on Sorna, so why go into it? All 5 of these movies, 5 movies exist in our film canon. So like I said, you can't really interchange these two things. They don't really work together, but separately, they're great. So when you're comparing, something that happened in Jurassic Park, the novel, versus something that happened in Lost World, the novel, go ahead. You want to compare something that happened in Jurassic Park, the novel, versus, Fallen Kingdom, doesn't really work out. Now, like I said, you can take theories and ideas, and if you want your headcanon, sure. Of course, we do have other non-canon material, which we'll get into more. So we have non-canon material, which you can see here. I'm going to take a drink. So all this stuff was written and created with the idea that, this fits in, right? It fits in. Let's just start with the evolution of Claire. So the evolution of Claire is something that is written to fit in perfectly. And I personally think it does. And I have considered it canon. But, there are some elements in there that really change things and are not really in line with canon. And it's kind of, it's kind of one of those things like, well, what am I going to do? I mean, it kind of doesn't work. For instance, Claire's sister's husband, his name is different. I don't remember what the name was, but it's different in the book than it is in the movie. And why? Why is that the case? And there's other instances as well. But it's just one thing that at this point in time, we have no firm, confirmation that this is canon. Jurassic Park, the game. Now, this is one that came out a while back. And for a long time, everybody has assumed it was canon because it so clearly worked within the confines of the movie and the other movies, because this came out before Jurassic World. So there was really nothing to base it off of. Like, the other 3 movies were already made and created, and then this came out, and it fit in there. Surely there were things that were didn't really work out too well, but why not? Let's just call it canon. But guys, it's not canon. I know a lot of people like to consider it canon, your head canon, that's fine. But there are things in there that cause discrepancies in the films. So technically, it's not canon. For instance, the visitor center entrance gets kind of demolished by the T-Rex coming out of the doorway there. So when you watch Jurassic World, you see the kids, Zach and Gray, walk up the stairs, sort of, to the doorway to go into the visitor center, and it's intact. There's no issue there. So that means, you think it back in your head, you're like, oh man, well, when I played Jurassic Park the game, the T-Rex went through there and kind of, broke it apart. And now what am I going to do? Oh, I guess it doesn't matter anymore. I guess it's not canon. Trespasser is another one, another game that people really, really enjoyed. I myself didn't get to play it, but I have, researched it a ton, and I've listened to a lot of the audio and everything like that. I know a lot of people like John Hammond and all of his dialogue and everything. So that's something that's pretty valuable to the fans. But we have no confirmation. This is not canon. Nobody considers it canon. Or maybe some people do. But it's not meant to be in the film franchise as of now. We have Jurassic Park comics and stuff from Topps and others. These were built as comic canon adventures, but things happen in them that very much are odd and strange and don't really fit in well with the universe. And then we have Jurassic World Live Tour, which has been touted for a very long time now that it's canon. It fits in with the storyline. So, I'm very sad about this. It's something that I think, it's a very close thing to me because we've gone to a lot of the events and, we've been a part of the coverage for this for a while now, and there's so much great work that has gone into this show. We've talked directly with the creators, everybody behind the scenes, the directors, the actors, producers, whoever it may be. We've talked directly with all these people, and everybody is just so in love with the work. And I mean, we are in love with it too. They've done such great stuff, and they've worked so hard to fit this into the storyline that we all know and love. This is part of their canon. They described it as such. I do want to go ahead and discuss this thing a little bit more because let's see here. I actually do have some audio that I'd like to play for you guys. Hopefully this comes through for you. It should be in here. So let me find that for you real quick. So this is from our behind the scenes of Jurassic World Live Tour. We went down to Feld Entertainment's studios down in Florida and had a roundtable with the crew behind the show, the directors, two of which you will hear here. So that'd be Dan Shipton and Ross Nicholson. So let's take a listen to what they had to say about Jurassic World Live Tour. You can find this full podcast. You can find the video here on our channel. You can find the podcast on our podcast feed or our website. But let's take a listen to what they have to say about where this kind of fits into the story.
We definitely play more closely to the events in Jurassic World, but in the creation and development, we obviously were mindful of the events in Fallen Kingdom and how we were true and authentic to this being and preceding that in the events that happen in the show. So we didn't want to necessarily foreshadow anything or give anything away. But yeah.
It's going to be tough just to set yourself in a certain timeline because things are always changing. Like there are always prequels or other things out there that you never know what they're going to pump out at some point. So I'm sure they don't want to have the show run over something that they want to work on.
We also have to trust NBCU because they are telling us that we absolutely fit perfectly into their canon. So they know their bigger world. They shared with us the story of Fallen Kingdom, of course, when we were developing the show, and so we were fully aware of where we sat between the two, and everything is ticking the boxes from their point of view. So I think we're all good, and
All
just
right.
talking about.
So let me bring myself back here. There you go. That is a little bit of the audio from the conversation that I had with the guys behind the Jurassic World Live Tour, and you could hear them talk about how it fits in to the ongoing story, the previous story. It slots right in there, in between Jurassic World and Jurassic World Live, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And they worked firmly with NBC Universal, and there was a lot of talk about Frank Marshall coming in to check all the logic behind the show, make sure everything worked well. It's gotten viewed and signed off on by Colin and Steven Spielberg and the like. So you heard them say that this is something that fits in perfectly with their canon. So that is just a little setup for later on. And we talked about them previously as well out in New York. We went to like a media event and they were, saying the same thing, that this is canon. And we've been saying that here for a while on the podcast that, guys, this is exciting. This is very, very exciting. Especially this time right now. We have Jurassic World Live Tour. We got Battle at Big Rock. We got more stuff coming out even in the future here. And we're just talking about all the the rich storytelling that is now available to us as fans, right? Jurassic World live tour, touted as canon, got us so pumped. And I'm going to say I'm still very pumped about it. It is such an awesome production. So please don't let anything sway your decision as far as, well, I don't know, this is not canon, maybe I shouldn't go. You should go. It's awesome. Please support it. There was so much incredible work that went into the show. So it kind of brings me to the fact that, like I said, this fits firmly into the canon. And I've seen the show. I saw it, in the previews, and there is nothing in the show that stops it from being in canon. There's no, discrepancies with the timeline. There's no issues that stop something from happening in the films or anything like that. I guess if they were to go back, if Jurassic World 3 is to go back in between Jurassic World and Jurassic World 2, like, I don't know if it would do that. Then maybe they'd want to erase this from existence. But as far as we know, they're moving forward. So I don't know. I don't know why this wouldn't be canon. But I've seen it. It firmly fits in there with nothing that stops it from being canon material. So, over time, I don't know. I guess we've had some stuff that is like, I don't know, not canon per se. There's always been discrepancies and issues and stuff like that in the films. The films have had their own issues. Let me actually go back to that. So, the films have their own canon, and before Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom came around, yeah, there were issues. These three films, the first three films were they were made separately. And yes, they have ties and the same similar characters and everything, but they were made separately, and they feel different. They feel different at times. So, for instance, Jurassic The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, same island, but they feel completely different. There's nothing about them that seems identical whatsoever, right? So, there's other issues around there and minor things that when you look into it, you really think like, I don't know, these things don't really line up all that well. But then, you move forward, you're like, all right, whatever, it's fine. Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, one of the major discrepancies here is like the map issues. The maps are wildly different. There's no continuity between those maps whatsoever. Even going all the way back to Jurassic Park, it's like there's just, especially with the maps, it's like none of this stuff really makes any sense. So we're kind of working on a broken timeline to begin with and a broken continuity to begin with. There's always been issues and weird stuff going on in this series, specifically like with, Jurassic Park and the Lost World. It's like, Ian Malcolm dies at the end of Jurassic Park, but then they're just like, hey, guess what? He's alive and he's going to be the star of the next book. So, in that case, it is what it is until it isn't. That's kind of what canon is, right? I mean, it is canon until somebody says otherwise, or some movie says otherwise, or somebody erases it over it with something else. So I just think it's interesting, and they're just not built as cohesive things. Steven Spielberg was never really keen on sequels and all that, and then he just started doing it. But you could tell that these were kind of written separately, and it's not like they had a major plan when it came to these movies, a grand plan that they set out back in 1993 to make this world-building, rich universe of dinosaur parks, and it just never really panned out that way. They kind of just wrote them as they went along. And now, with Jurassic World having the same characters over and over and over again, it's kind of telling you that this is meant to be an ongoing story, something that matters, something that, fits in. And it is, but yes, there are some discrepancies here and there. But, you can talk about dinosaur designs, all kinds of stuff. But we're not going to go into like the deep issues with canon or anything like that. But like I said, like look at this thing right here. So this is the comic. It says the official sequel to Jurassic Park, but I mean, majority of people don't really consider that the official sequel to what happened in Jurassic Park. But you know, it was made at a time when it was possible, you know, and then it's not like Colin sitting there like, oh, well, you know, I got to write Jurassic Park 6. Oh, you know what? You know, this thing happened in the comic Topps #1. I can't do it because that happened in the comic. You know, it was a great idea, but sorry, it's already taken. Something like a comic, they can just be like, well, that doesn't exist anymore. So let's see here. I want to go. Actually, we're going to go over here. I want to talk about the actual incident that sparked this discussion. Because this all came down to Colin Trevorrow. He went to the media, the world premiere. Despite the live tour being in production for a while now, for a few weeks, month or so, they actually went to Chicago, I believe, and they had a world premiere, invited out celebrities, and Colin was out there. And I do have, let's see where I can find that. I do have Colin here, so I want to bring him up and just kind of, we'll take a listen if we can, and I'll start it over here for you guys in a second, but there we go. So here's Colin. This is from the Instagram stories for Jurassic World live tour.
You know, it's we have something we call soft canon, which is that it happened, but it also exists in its own space. And you know, Feld, all of the writers and the creators, they made a new story, an original story that exists in the context of Jurassic World, and I think people are really going to love it. It's just the craftsmanship, you know, how they have taken so much time and effort. It's so meticulous, the making of these puppets, the ability to make them feel lifelike, the fact that we have living people inside of these creatures moving around. I think it gives them a kind of life that animatronics can't bring, that digital effects can't bring, and this is its own thing.
All right, so just going back for 1 second, it's really this initial piece here from him.
You know, it's we have something we call soft canon.
Soft canon
is that it happened, but it also exists in its own space. And you know, Feld, all of the writers and the creators, they.
All right, so we have this thing called soft canon, which is that it happens, but it also exists in its own space, right? So this is kind of new news to us. There was a time when Colin did say soft canon before, when it referred to, I believe it was Jurassic World Evolution, that was termed, you know, soft canon. And I talked about soft canon before, that it's something that takes place, but it doesn't. It's kind of like, you know, if we were to ever overwrite this in the future, we can. You know, we do not have to adhere to this. You know, it's not something that really exists in the canon, especially when you're differentiating between canon or hard canon and soft canon. Soft canon is essentially non-canon in that instance, because if it didn't take place, or if it's slotted in there but not really adhered to, it's not canon. So that's kind of where people are frustrated, and the conversation has certainly sparked from that instance is this term soft canon and how it applies to everything that we already know with the Jurassic series. Essentially, it kind of erases what we know as canon. You know, we don't really have a lot to begin with. We have the films, and we have potentially the evolution of Claire and Jurassic World Live Tour. Outside of that, nothing else can really be considered canon. But I think, like I said, like we've no confirmations on all these other things. So when we hear that Jurassic World Live Tour is soft canon, it kind of rubs people the wrong way, and we just kind of have to live with it at this point, I guess, because it's something that could happen in the universe, but it doesn't necessarily have to. I do want to point out here, there is a great article. Let me just bring that up here over on the on Jurassic Outpost, all about this instance. So there you can see the video. This is from Tom Fishenden. He, a contributor here on the podcast. He wrote up a great article for the team over at Jurassic Outpost as a guest contributor, and wrote up all about the continuity and the canon, and then discussed later on, what happens when you say that things are soft canon and what it does to the universe, and something that I find interesting. I find a lot of this interesting, and something that I wanted to discuss as well is the fact that when you talk about something being soft canon or non-canon in a lot of instances, it kind of hurts the brand. It hurts the brand a little bit. When you say, now this is not for everybody. This is not for everybody because some people don't care about canon. Whatever, that's fine. But when you say things are not canon, it kind of hurts the brand a little bit, and people are less interested. If they can't spend their time taking in official material, then what's the point? Like for me, for instance, if I'm gonna take in official Star Wars content, because I want to talk about something that has a big universe to discuss. Today, as of this video, I am reading the 21st novel that I have read since they redid their universe. So back in the early days before Disney bought Star Wars, there was an expanded universe of material. There was, shows and all that stuff. But in 2012, they signed it over to Disney, and then Disney's like, you know what? I think we'd be better off making a new canon, a real canon for this, because the stuff, the expanded universe stuff was never real. It's kind of like this with Jurassic. It's like, it's never really been canon, or it's kind of been discussed as canon, but not really, and sort of. But they just went ahead and they erased it. Gone. So it's gone. Except for the films and the Clone Wars, I believe. I don't know if there was anything else at that point. So they just erased it from existence. Yes, you could still buy the old books and the old comics and whatever it may be, but they didn't count towards the overall story that they were building. And there's been so many books, so many comics, so many TV shows, all this great stuff since 2012. And that was the point for me where I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start now, because if I don't start now, I'm going to be lost like I was previously with the expanded universe. So that was a welcoming experience for me, was to be like, all right, now's my time to catch up. Now's my time to really dive deep into this universe. So now I'm 21 books deep into this franchise since, 2012. And I'm loving, all these different stories, these new tales. And we're talking about 2012, so the film started in 2015 for Star Wars, same as Jurassic, and we have one novel, so that's kind of disappointing. When I thought about that today, I was like, ouch, that hurts. That hurts. Star Wars is just killing it. They have everything you could possibly want. I love Star Wars, and it still hurts, though, to see, something like almost like a sister franchise in a way, where it's been running for so long now. They remade the sequel. They're not remade, but they rebooted it in a way in 2015, both franchises, and just went down this path. They're very similar in nature, these movies, the first two films. So to see that we have one expanded universe novel at this point, it's kind of disheartening. So, I don't know. I don't know why we can't have the material. This is kind of like a tangent, I guess, but there's no real reason why we can't, because it's been happening for so long now with Star Wars, and they're running on full throttle. And even as of this recording, next week there's going to be a new TV show. It's going to be crazy, and the movie's coming out, later this year. So yeah, it's kind of frustrating when we get one novel and we get one live tour, and then you say that's not canon. It's a little frustrating. I get it. But yeah. I don't know. It's just this weird place to be sitting in right now. And what it does is, it, like I was saying before, it kind of dissuades you from caring about canon or caring about releases. If you go ahead and buy The Evolution of Claire, and then after you buy it, the creators are like, well, it doesn't count. And then you're like, oh man, I wanted it to count so bad. And then you go see live tour and you're like, oh, this counts, right? I heard it was canon. And then a few days later, it's like, no, sorry, it's not canon anymore. It's frustrating and it hurts. It hurts a little bit because you took your time, your well-earned money, and you took some time away from all the other things that you could be consuming at this moment. Because let's face it, we're in a world where you can consume anything at any time, and you are falling behind. Guaranteed. You are in the same boat as everybody else, where you have so many episodes of that show to watch. Or, oh, I want to go out to the movies and see that movie. When am I going to find time to do that? Oh, I have so many novels I want to read. When am I going to catch up on these comic books? It never ends, right? So you have to spend all your hard-earned money and your time of your, like, special times of your life to these. You have to devote times to these properties, right? You can't do it 24/7. You have family, you have other life issues that you have to take care of. But the time that you can spend, you want it to matter. You don't want it to be erased from existence. So to have this be spread as now soft canon, it kind of hurts in a way, I think. For me, it definitely kind of kicked me a little bit this week. When I heard that it was soft canon, I was like, oh man. I mean, me personally, I don't care less because I'll consider it canon, I guess, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't necessarily have to have happened. They can erase it at any point. But I think it undermines a little bit what the work that has been done, here. And like I said, these creators have been talking about canon and how it fits into the universe. Everybody is so proud of this show and what they've been capable of producing this show. So really, I don't know, how far it's gotten, if it's gotten out to them or not, but it hurts to see all that work kind of being undermined in a way where, it's not really canon, guys. That's a little frustrating, I think, overall. But I don't know. That's just me. I forgot to mention this thing too, but this is another one that it is, this is canon material here, guys. I don't know how many of you, stumble across the DPG, but, this is supposed to be stuff that's canon material that you take into consideration when you go into your movies and, read your books and all this stuff. Like, this is supposed to be Claire Dearing and her right up here, and then all these reports are supposed to be real reports that actually happened. You got Mizrani Global, something that actually happened. We read the stories on here, and we talk about how they actually happened in this universe. And there's I forget where it is on this page, but there's talk about Vic Hoskins going out and stopping, the pteranodons that got out and blah, blah, blah. And then you have Extinction Now, which is kind of like the alternative to the DPG. And so these things are canon material, but, I can't help but feel like in Colin's mind or the Universal's mind that maybe there's soft canon as well. And that, they could be erased at any point. And I feel bad. Again, I feel bad that that's the case. Something like this and, something like the live tour, something like the novel, The Evolution of Claire, this stuff, unfortunately, can be erased at any point. because the only thing that really, truly matters is the film. The films are the only thing that really matter. This is what their Universal is putting their hard-earned money into, is these films. So really the only thing that matters at this point is this. For Star Wars, that's not the case. But for Jurassic, it is. In most cases, Star Wars is not going to erase anything from their canon. It's just going to become part of the universe, and they do adhere to things because things from the other material do show up in their films. So that's not really the case here. So, we have our hard canons, and we have soft canon and head canon. And does it matter? Does canon matter, guys? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I said, this is people's work. So that doesn't matter, though, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, whether it's people's work or not, because Tess Sharp wrote The Evolution of Claire, and she spent a lot of time and effort to make that as enriched as possible, and I thought it was a great novel. And I've considered it canon. But does that matter in the grand scheme of things? I guess not, because it's not a film. Does the live tour matter? I guess not. So now at this point, we're just stuck with the 5 films, which is fine. That's great. But does canon matter really? Does it matter if we have an official timeline or not? Because like I said, there's so many inconsistencies already in this franchise that does it really matter anymore? Like, is there really anything to argue about, I guess? I don't know. I think it can matter. I would like it to matter. I would like it to matter personally. I think it would be nice if we had an expanded universe. So I could sit there and say, well, Dr. Kate Walker from the live tour is such a great character that when I watch Jurassic World, she exists in that world. But right now I'm less inclined to do that. When I watch Fallen Kingdom and I see that Claire cares about dinosaurs and about animals and all that, and I wonder, how did this happen? I refer back to The Evolution of Claire, and I think about her transformation in that story. But does it matter? No, I guess not. I mean, I guess not. But you can also say, does a hard, firm timeline matter? No, it doesn't really matter. You can pick and choose. It doesn't necessarily have to be hard canon. It can be whatever you want it to be. Hard canon, like I said, is the 5 films, and that's all. If you want to take into consideration that soft canon, go ahead, please do so and make it canon in a way. But I don't think there is soft canon. It's just canon and not canon, just canon and other stuff. So for me, it's just canon and head canon. That's all I consider it. It's do with it what you want to do with it, I guess. If that's what makes you happy as a fan, go ahead and consider whatever you want. If you want Muldoon to be alive, he's alive. If you want The Evolution of Claire to be a real thing, a real firm, hard canon, it is. It is if you want it to be. If those discrepancies don't bother you, sure, whatever. Just don't even think about them. If you don't like Jurassic World, don't care about it. Skip over it. But I will say, if somebody, gets into an argument about something and says, well, blah, 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 this thing happened, and then you're like, well, I don't care about Jurassic World. You kind of have to forfeit that argument because, something happened in Jurassic World that maybe you just don't care about. So it's kind of like this weird thing where you can't necessarily have a full debate and conversation about things if you're not taking everything into consideration. But I totally get headcanon. That's kind of where you have to fall these days, I think. It's kind of hard because this is all we have is headcanon at this point when it comes to stuff outside of the films. And it's kind of sad. Like I said, 21 novels deep into Star Wars. It's 21 novels deep into material that matters, countless comic books that matter, audio dramas that matter, theme park lands that matter. They fit into the timeline and they are canon. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. We are getting new rides for Jurassic, but they're not canon. They're just things that happen. You know, like the specifically the ride, Jurassic World, the ride, it happens in such a non-canon way. It's completely different than what happened in the movie. So it's like, you know, that doesn't happen in the world that they built. For instance, you could have said Jurassic Park, the ride happened. You know, it was Orlando or it's California. It's not Isla Nublar. But since they rebranded the theme parks into, well, this is Isla Nublar now, that kind of breaks the canon a little bit. So you can't really consider the rides canon anymore. So it's a bit of a, you know, it's a tough spot. And now with the Jurassic World that they're building out in Beijing, it's, you know, it's going to be a fully operational Isla Nublar. So it's like just retreading the same storyline instead of breaking new ground. So yeah, I hate to compare. I really do. I think you can perfectly love both series and everything. So it's not about arguing between the two. It's just about, you know, here's an example of one thing that has so much, and here's Jurassic over here, and it's like, well, we want some of these things too. We don't want them to continually be taken away from us, but they kind of are. Of course, the stories will always still exist, so that's not a problem. You know, but I think something has to be said about availability too. I know a lot of people reached out when it comes to availability. They said, you know, well, I don't have the option to see the live tour, so it shouldn't count. And I'm like, well, that's not really the case. It kind of does count, even if you don't have the option to see it. You know, going back to Star Wars, I don't have the Disney Channel or Disney, whatever the other one is. I don't have that one that has the new Star Wars TV show on there. Not The Mandalorian, but Star Wars Resistance, Disney XD. I don't have that. So I can't watch that show. But it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. You know, it happens. And if they reference something in the movies, it's going to fly over my head. But that's all right. You know, it is what it is. You know, I don't have the opportunity to watch it, so that's on me. But, you know, availability does not exclude canon. You know, you should be able to have canon that is not available to everybody. I'm sorry to say. It's a tough spot. And I know the live tour is a thing that you have to pay a lot of money to, or you have to travel to, or whatever it may be. The live tour will be going internationally, so people do have the opportunity to see this. It's just going to take a little while for it to get to them. So I don't think canon should be subject to where you live or your availability to see something. Just because, you know, like I said, if you never made it out to the movies to see The Lost World, but you saw Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, it has still happened. You know, the Lost World still happened. But really, I don't know. I don't know where we stand at this point. You know, what do we do now? Because we have Camp Cretaceous coming next year. Camp Cretaceous. That's my excitement has unfortunately dipped, I will say. You know, now that things can just be taken away, or the hard work and the fans are not really considered when it comes to expanded material, it's hard to care in a way. It's hard to say, like, you know, that, like I said before, there's so many things to watch. If it doesn't matter, does it count? You know, should it count? I don't know. It's very hard to analyze and to discuss fully, but Camp Cretaceous is another one that my heart kind of sank a little bit when I heard this soft canon thing that, you know, maybe this won't be canon either. Maybe this is soft canon too. I mean, we've yet to know, but it seems like I would assume it most likely be soft canon because it's an animated thing and they can go ahead and overwrite it at any point. But I don't know, maybe it's because it's a visual medium, because it's on a network or whatever it may be. Maybe it will be canon. I don't know. But in my gut, am thinking it's probably going to be soft canon and not really count. So I don't know where we go from here, though, because, with Jurassic World Live Tour, eventually they'll probably want to do a sequel to that show. We know the creators are really intent on continuing, so we'll see what happens there. We have continually talked about the evolution of series that, we only have one. We only have Claire so far, but it would be wonderful to see the evolution of series continued. So the evolution of Owen or Dr. Wu or, whoever it may be. But I got to say, if you're telling me that it might not be canon, then I might be less inclined to read it. So that's troublesome, I think. It's very troublesome. And I'm not just saying that to be like, angry or stern or something like that. Like I said, time is valuable. And if something doesn't count, then it might not matter to individuals who want to, consider canon material. So that's something to think about, I think. But I don't know. Can we fix it at this point? No. I mean, it is what it is. It's just a messy universe. It's just a mess of a timeline at this point when it comes to expanded materials, and we don't really know what's happening. And it would be nice to have firm and concrete answers as to what is and what isn't, and why is soft a thing, and why do we have levels of canon, and just let it be canon. There's, like I said, there's nothing in Jurassic World Live Tour that is stopping or interfering with the canon that we already have. Even the evolution of Claire, it really doesn't interfere all that much. There's some things here and there, but it's fine. Like, just let it be canon. It's okay to have issues. I said that at the very beginning. It's okay to have these little discrepancies and issues throughout the series, but I think the fans are okay with that. Overall, I think we're okay if there's little things here and there. Like, I know the live tour has its goofier moments and silly over-the-top moments, but overall, the story is so wonderful that it deserves to be considered canon. It deserves to be thought of when you think of the 5 films. It deserves to be up there. Same with the evolution of Claire. It deserves to be in there. These new materials that have been produced under the Jurassic World banner deserve to be considered. They really do. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where we stand right now, and I don't think there's any way to fix it. I don't think, I don't think Colin will retread or backtrack or anything and say, you know what, this is canon now, or anything like that. But what are you going to do? I don't know. There's no way around it. But right now, I would like to hear a little bit of what everybody else has to say. So I'm first going to go to Twitter real quick and discuss our poll. So I wanted to ask people what your thoughts were on the canon. The poll options: I want a cohesive canon, I don't care about canon, I have my own head canon, or it doesn't matter, it's a mess. So I just kind of created those answers based off of the conversation that was already in place. And overwhelmingly, after a lot of votes, cohesive canon really won. So people want to see a story that matters and a connected universe of stories and branches and all this other stuff. So we want these things to be considered and things to matter. Least amount, obviously, I don't care about canon. People do care. People do care. But the other ones got nearly equal, votes there. So, but that's a wide gap. That's a wide gap between not caring and having headcanon and it doesn't matter. 65% care about the storyline. Caleb here says, to be honest, my opinion is a mix of choices 1 and 3. He wants cohesive canon, but also know that there's a few little items, little points of contention in the films that come to mind that fans choose their own outcome on. This is a Jurassic topic I could talk for hours. And Jen Yeah, these two so far have been our contributors. Caleb is a contributor. Jennifer's a contributor. I don't see the point of muddling the pool with things that aren't canon. To be honest, the head canon is a lie. So that's interesting. And all right, so here's one from Matt that I found interesting. It says, for example, Jurassic Park the game can be soft canon because it doesn't directly contradict the events of the movie. Which to that I say it does, though. It kind of does. Sorry, bud. It does add some great stuff, like he's saying, like the Mount Sibo thing that was introduced in Fallen Kingdom. It's interesting, and the Jerry Sarah relationship. That's great. I love that. I love that stuff. I really do love that game. But and for instance, I love the roller coaster that they have on that side of the park. In my mind, I'm like, you know what? Sure, why not? That exists. Why not? But I don't. If somebody was to say, like, you need to do this or that to write this and that, I'd be like, well, it doesn't really exist. Maybe if I want to write it in, if it doesn't ruin anything else, sure. But the fact that, it does kind of contradict the events of Jurassic World, it's a little iffy. And if you want I didn't even mention the Lego stuff today. Like, the Lego stuff, if that's going to be under the soft canon branch, something that happens but doesn't happen, that's an interesting one because the Lego stories are wild. They are completely wild. I'm not going to ruin any of the new stuff because there's the new series, The Legend of Isla Nublar, that has some really crazy ongoing storylines in there. And it's really fun stuff. Don't get me wrong. That is fun stuff, but it's not canon. And it shouldn't have the word canon anywhere near it because then you don't want to confuse anybody. That's why I don't really like the term soft canon. It's kind of confusing, these different levels of what is canon, what's not canon. That's why I like that Star Wars is like, you know what? We have Legends material, stuff that happened in the old extended universe, and then we have, the new canon or whatever that's called. Let's see here. Sam says, I want a cohesive canon. The idea of soft canon is kind of weird to me. Like, isn't that basically what fan fiction is? I mean, yeah, kind of. And like I said earlier with the description of canon material, it's like, well, it's often contrasted with or used as the basis of fan fiction. So, you got that. Let's see here. Billy Reed says, cohesive canon, please. I think that if you just take the films into consideration, there's a small bit of mental gymnastics, but all in all, it's pretty cohesive. Yeah, pretty much. Stuff like the Jurassic World live show and the Telltale JP game feel like they shouldn't be canon to me. That's fair enough. I don't know if you got a chance to see the live tour, but I don't think the JP game should be canon either, so I get that. Norm here says, I own every new Star Wars canon book and comic. You could say I love canon. I would gladly give Jurassic Park my money too. Yeah. Appalachiosaurus says, is there any option for I care about canon but think y'all are blowing the problems way out of proportion? No, I mean, there wasn't an option for that, but that's perfectly acceptable too. I do think there is a level of this just being overblown, but I think when you look back and you say, where are we? We're that we started this universe 2015. It's now 2019. By the time the next movie comes out, 2021, where are we in terms of stories? If we just have 3 new films, that's kind of disappointing. We have Battle at Big Rock, which I didn't even mention here. Is that canon? I don't know. I'm assuming yes, because it is directed by Colin, and I would assume yes. So I think that's probably safely canon. But CJ Broskin here says, I honestly don't know anymore. The franchise has changed so drastically in the past few years that if you did put out all types of JP media together, it would be one incoherent mess of contradictions. Yeah. So I think like that's one of the things that is tough. It's kind of a mess. It's kind of a mess here. And I think people are seeing that. And it's not escaping people that you have this weird ongoing branch of video games and novels and comics or whatever it may be, live tours. You have live exhibition. It's a mess. It's a mess, and people want definition. People want to know what is going on. I'm sorry I have been ignoring you guys this entire time in the live chat. So let's go ahead and see anything that's happening over here. Apologies. All right, so scroll. Oh my God, this is a lot. Scrolling back up, I'm not going to go through everything here. Oh yeah, so I like this. Never so clever as this. Says, when I hear levels of canon, I flash back to Catholic school and learning about scripture versus apocrypha. I don't know what that word is. But I find that interesting because you're learning about scripture and all of that stuff. But it's funny because if you continue on in this origin of canon, the word canon originally here, it's right here. The word canon originated in reference to a set of texts derives from the biblical canon, the set of books regarded as scripture, as contrasted with the exactly what you just said, the non-canonical apocrypha. Never heard of that. Yeah, that's how you say it, I guess. I don't know. Apocrypha are works usually written of unknown authorship or doubtful origin. Okay. And that's something that I find interesting as well is when it comes to the Dinosaur Protection Group, it's something that has been described as, what's the word that I wanted to use here? Unreliable narrators. This is stuff that is pushed as canonical material and maybe soft canon, but it is described as unreliable in a certain degree, where this is the point of view of Claire Dearing. But is Claire accurate? I don't know. That's kind of like a way out, you know? It's a way of saying, you know, it's canon, but Claire could be wrong. So if Claire's wrong, you know, maybe Zia's wrong too. Maybe Franklin's wrong. That's kind of frustrating in a way because you want this stuff to be firm and real. I think when it comes to canon, you can't refuse canon. Canon is real. Canon happened. What happened in the movie is real. I don't want anybody to ever say to me, well, what you saw in Jurassic Park didn't really happen the way it happened. That's like a revelation that needs to happen in the movie, and it's like, it's a twist and turn. But like, to say what you saw didn't actually happen is another thing. And it's kind of what we've got going on here, because right now we've got Battle at Big Rock, which is like, it's got this Nasutoceratops that, where did it come from? Where did it come from? I don't know. It came from Jurassic World. Because, Colin described Fallen Kingdom as you only saw what J.A. pointed his camera at. So technically, J.A. is an unreliable narrator. He didn't show us everything. So, unreliable narrator is an interesting thing to talk about because I want proof and I want real things. I want real things to matter. And if this doesn't matter, like, why am I caring? I want Colin to tell us that this website matters. I want him to say, this is real. It's not unreliable. I don't want this to change at any point in time. I want it to be real. But if it's not real, then who cares? Sorry. I feel bad, but like, if it's not real, then what's the point of creating all this stuff? Watching the live tour, reading The Evolution of Claire, playing Jurassic World Evolution. That was never really meant to be canon, but it's apparently soft canon, whatever that means. Because for sure that didn't happen. That's a video game that you can create your own park with a series of events that never happened in the movies. So That's an interesting one. But that was a big tangent from Bible canon. But I just thought that was very interesting that you brought that up, because canon does base itself around the Bible. So that's interesting. VNK95. The franchise has changed. The canon is dead. You're right there. You're right. Right in this moment, I feel like the canon is dead. It's the films film to film. It is evolving, as Jacob Arnold says. Maybe it's not dead, but it's evolving. I mean, yeah, it is evolving. It's just right now it seems kind of dead because the expanded canon is non-existent right now. Andrew Ochoa says, exactly, the book is the canon, the real one, and their variants. I'm not saying levels, but different mediums that tell the story, but different visions. That's my take. I'm not really sure what you mean there. They're different stories completely. So there's two, like, these are not the levels of canon. I mean, these are just two different variants of canon. Is you have your novel canon, and then you have your film canon. Scrolling down here a little bit. Yeah, Jurassic Park, or J Park Lover says Camp Cretaceous may be another separate canon next year, if not confirmed film canon by Trevorrow and the producers. Yeah, I mean, it would be great to have confirmation as to where that lies. We don't really know right now where it lies and what is it. Where does it fit in the overall canon? Going over to the press release that I just brought up here. I just want to look at that real quick and see what's going on there. But this is the media center for Netflix, Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. It says, the only thing that I've really gathered from this is that it's set within the same timeline as the 2015 blockbuster film, which is exactly what Jurassic World Live Tour does. It's set within that same timeline and then kind of goes outside of that timeline, outside of what we see in the film. So technically it's like mostly untreaded to like ground. So is this going to be real? Is this going to matter? I don't know. I just don't know. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, there's really no information there about whether it's going to be real or not. But yeah. Going back over to the chat. Ride Blades 007 says, I got excited for possibly seeing Jurassic World live, but then I saw it looks like it's aimed for kids. I'm going to take that and say it's not. It's not. It's aimed for families, which is really what the films are aimed for. The creators directly talked about this is made for people who see the films. So if you see the films, you should be able to take in this series. And yes, there are some over-the-top, goofier moments, like I was saying earlier, but it's not really made for kids. There's a lot of fighting and action and stunts and like all kinds of good stuff like that. But there is some good story elements in there and some really great expanded material to discuss about, where this all fits into the timeline, what was going on behind the scenes, what other parts of the park can we look at? Like, there's some really great stuff in there. Really great stuff, even coming from the dinosaurs. I think you guys would really appreciate that. So don't think that this is just for kids. Yeah, Rebel Commander 7 says Clayton Fioriti made a video that says the evolution of Claire was canon. like I said, this is all up in the air right now. The evolution of Claire is supposed to be canon, but at this point, we can't even judge what it's supposed to be. Because the films are the canon right now. Right now, the films are canon. And that's about it. Yeah, this one here, sorry, I can't read the handle, but it says, since JP had sequels, it became a franchise. And canon became one of the important things to the fandom. It became important to the fandom, but really, honestly, back then when they're making this, 93, 97, 2001, Steven Spielberg is caring about some continuity here and there, but really it's just there was no consideration for universes back then. The MCU wasn't a thing. Star Wars was a thing, but they had their 6 movies, and it really was kind of dead at that point. That was about it. I mean, the 6th movie came out 2005, I believe. So it's, it was coming out still at that point, but that was it. And after number, the 3rd prequel, it was dead for a while. So yeah, it's we want these things to continue and to continue happening. And that's the fan experience. We want these things to be real and to be valued. It just feels like there's no care involved when it comes to the world building. That's just my take, at least. So Genozoic Artist says, Colin also referred to Telltale game as soft canon, I believe. Oh, gosh. I don't want to hear about that. I hope not. See, that's what I mean. Soft canon is not a thing. It's not canon. Soft canon is not canon. There's only canon. Canon is one thing, one title. It's either real or it's not. It either happened or it didn't. That's just, it's a realistic viewpoint. You can't really refuse canon. You can choose to not adhere to it, or you can choose your own, things to take in, but it happened. It really did happen. Sorry, I'm slowly reading through everybody's thing here. Yeah, Genozoic Artist. Yeah, this is a time I wish I could actually speak during these. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, that you are not popping in here. And I just didn't include Battle at Big Rock because there really wasn't much to discuss in terms of canon. It doesn't really affect anything anywhere. It's just it's part of the story, but it really doesn't affect anything. And J Park Lover again says the evolution of Claire takes place in 2005, so there's not much continuity issue with the films. There's not really. There is some issues in terms of continuity and world building stuff, but it's not really anything that treads over anything too bad. So it's perfectly fine to accept. But yeah, I don't know. You guys are Seymoon Dan. I'm sorry if I can't pronounce that. It says, tell us the evolution of that gorgeous shirt. This Doctor Who shirt, which, has no continuity whatsoever. That's kind of all over the place. There is this overall storyline that's pretty intact, but there's so many inconsistencies and things in there that it's kind of just blows your mind. You can't really think too hard when it comes to it. And that's, I think, part of the fun is just have fun with these things. We all like to analyze these things very, very seriously and talk about them as if there's big issues and stuff like that. But it really doesn't matter. They're films. It's just supposed to be fun. Yes, we are all spending money and spending time on these things, and it does kind of hit you a little bit when things are not valued. But they are supposed to be fun, and they're supposed to be just enjoyed and just to have fun with them. But I think that's the approach that we have to take these days, is not to really think too seriously. when it comes to all this stuff, it is what it is. It all happens, you could accept it all if you want, or none of it. It doesn't matter. I don't really care. At this point, whatever happens, happens. And if a new book comes out, maybe I'll read it. Maybe I won't. If I have some time, I'll probably read it. But I don't know. If I'm told that it doesn't matter, then I don't know. It's all kind of up in the air. I want the creators to tell me things matter, is really what it comes down to. I don't want to be told that this is a thing that doesn't really count. I think that's the problem. So I'm trying to have fun with this stuff and just say, it is what it is. It's all good. But I do want things to matter, and I do want the creators to value them as well. And no, Doctor Who is not canon within the Jurassic timeline, but in its own universe canon, it's a mess as well. So, and I want to reference this here real quick. Jacob Arnold says, "No offense, but I do think that you are taking things out of context and not really thinking hard enough to really understand what is going on with things in the lore." Are you talking about Jurassic or something else? I don't know how to take that comment, to be honest. What would be taken out of context? Would it be the comments by Colin of Soft Canon? I don't think there's really much to take out of context there. It's something that doesn't necessarily count. It's in the world, but it doesn't matter. There's not really much reading into that. It is what it is. He said what he said. But I don't know. I don't really know where you're going with that comment, but it's not really blowing things out of proportion or taking things out of context. It's just a thing that was said, and you can't really deny that. And yeah, I don't know. If things don't matter to the creators, then it's hard for the fans to matter or to care about these things as well. So that's my viewpoint. But it's canon doesn't really matter to everybody, so that's fair. But I want canon to matter. I'm one of those people that's like in the 65% that says like I want something cohesive. But at the same time, I realize that this whole thing is already a mess despite the extended universe. So what does it really matter? What does it really doesn't matter all that much. But yeah, it's been a while, guys. It's been like an hour and a half, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. I've been like talking nonstop, so hopefully you got out everything that you needed to say. Sorry if I didn't cover everybody's comments there. Yeah, the overall thing on this is it is what it is. It really is. It's like, well, you can't really do much about it. This is what it is. I know. All the stories matter to me, Genozoic artists, too. But I want them to matter. And I want the creators to act like they matter is really what it comes down to. I don't want things to be blown off and to say that they're secondary or anything like that. And Jacob says, you're taking terms out of context and not thinking hard enough to put things in the lore together. I'm thinking plenty hard, man. Trust me. I don't really know where you're going with that comment, man. It sounds very demeaning. I don't really get that. I'm not thinking hard enough to put things into the lore together. Trust me, I've had all these things in the context of the storyline. Like, I can perfectly fit in Jurassic World Live Tour and the evolution of Claire. I perfectly can. They're in there for me. I've forever thought about these things as canon. Once the evolution of Claire came up, it was in my canon. And once the live tour came up, I talked about over and over how that is canon. It's something that happened. It's something that's real. And I talked about in our live review or whatever that we did, our 2-hour plus content. I just said that I can't wait to rewatch Jurassic Park or Jurassic World and say, I remember when that character that we know from the live tour was somewhere in the background over here thinking and watching and reacting to things as they're happening. Not to spoil anything, but I am fully invested in the connectivity of these stories. But if the creators are telling me they're not connected, then who cares? You know? That's, yeah, money, you know, VNK95 says money is the game. Who cares? Yeah, but that's, you know, the problem for me is Star Wars. That's the problem. I love Star Wars, and they are killing it. They're killing it with all their canon material. Where's ours? Where's ours? I want to say thank you so much to Seymoon for the $1.99. Man, that's awesome. Thank you so much, dude. If you're dude, I don't know, but thank you so much for contributing to the conversation here. That's awesome. That is I'm so thankful. If you have anything you want me to comment on, go ahead, write it in there. But yeah, I don't know where Jacob's going. I don't know if you guys can decipher it either or not, but yeah, it's been fun, guys. It's been fun. What do you guys think? Am I crazy? Probably, right? I'd love to hear more, Jacob, but I'd love to comment more on them. Write it out, man. Go ahead, write it out. J. Park Lover, the simplest way to untangle the canon mess is to organize by media type. Film canon, novel canon, novelization canon, comic canon, Lego canon, Jurassic Park the game canon, and Trespasser canon. That's too much. That's too much. And it's yeah, I know you're joking around probably, but it's just too much. It doesn't work like that, guys. Like, just have one timeline, one that makes sense. It's disheartening, you know? Genozoic Artist says, yes, I'm crazy, but not about this. I agree. I mean, maybe I'm crazy about everything, but Jacob, I'm telling you to write it right now, man. Write it right now. Get it going, because I don't know what you're talking about. And Rebel Alliance thinks I'm not crazy, which, good. That's good to hear. Yeah, Andrew, making the best as we can with what we can. I don't know, I read that wrong, but that's pretty much what you said. Yeah, that's about it. You know, make the best of this situation is just take whatever you want. You know, if like I said, if you want Jurassic Park Adventures, the real sequel to Jurassic Park, if you want that in your canon, it's canon. If you want Jurassic Park the game in your canon, it's canon. Whatever. Throw it all out there. Until somebody says these things are canon, then that's it. You know? Right now, there is no hard reset. There's no official timeline. There's nothing that's really indicating to us what is going on. And soft canon is apparently a thing, and I guess hard canon, if you're going to go with soft, I guess there has to be hard. Head canon seems to be the winning outcome right now. So, yeah, I don't know. And Seymoon Dan says, can I request the background song? I don't know what it is. I forget what the name of it is. Jacob's commenting again. He says, okay, the term soft canon in context basically means that while certain story elements in a franchise is canon, it's not 100% how they're shown in the media they're presented in. That's confusing. Why is that a thing? Why is that a thing? Why should that be the description that we have to live with? I mean, there's no other way. Let's go to the camera. Let's go to the tape, guys. Going back to the tape. Bring the music down just a little bit. We're going to go back to the tape here. See if we can bring up Colin again. What did he say, guys?
You know, it's we have something we call soft canon, which is that it happened, but it also exists in its own space. And you know, Feld, all of the writers and the creators, they made a new story, an original story that exists in the context of Jurassic World, and I think people are really going to love it. It's just the craftsmanship,
yeah,
you know, how they have taken so much.
It exists in the context of Jurassic World. What he's saying is it's not canon. It's not that hard. It's not canon, guys. Like, he's literally standing right in front of the people for Jurassic World Live Tour and saying that their work doesn't matter, which is kind of weird, but you know, it happened. That's canon, guys. It happened. You can hear his words right there. Talk about how it's something that happens within the context of Jurassic World, but not really. It fits, like Jacob's saying, it fits into the franchise's greater context and lore. It happens all the time in other franchises. No, it doesn't really. In other franchises, I don't really care too much what other ones are doing. It comes down to what the context of canon is about. A lot of franchises really aren't going crazy about canon, but something like Star Wars does, and that's what the model is what I'm saying, is you need to kind of base it off of that. And it doesn't... What he's saying is that it doesn't really count. He didn't even have to say this at all. He didn't have to say this whatsoever. He could have just said that this is something that fits within the universe and not said anything about soft canon, because soft canon is something that is not necessarily real. It's something that can be overwritten. It's not really any I'm perfectly capable of looking into this way, but I know soft canon is not a real term until he coined it. I don't know if he directly came up with the term, but when you try to reference soft canon on the internet, it really is non-existent. It really seems to have just come from Colin here. And he did use this a while back, though. This is not the first instance. It actually came from, I think there was another tweet where he mentioned soft canon. Yeah. It's not really a great term. And Jacob, I'm having a hard time vocalizing exactly this thing here, but there's canon, right? There's canon. So canon is this thing. We'll just say canon is this. You can't have another this. You know, you say that this other pen is soft canon and this one's canon. This one just doesn't count. This is it. This is canon right here. This is a bad analogy, but this is it. You know? You can't have two terms for the same thing. Anton Laszlo, this is so frustrating. I know. This video is frustrating. Everything's frustrating. Canon is its own thing. Canon is canon, and you can pick and choose, but you can't refuse what canon is. Canon is canon. There's no levels. There's not hard, there's not soft, there's not head. It's just canon. That's it. What happened, happened. No, soft canon is not a real thing. It's just not really a thing. It isn't a thing. If you're adding it to canon, then it's canon. That's all. You can't really... If you're adding something to canon, it's canon. You can't just differentiate it and say that this is something that's soft canon. What's the point of soft canon if you're adding it to canon? Nothing. It's just canon. The new Joker movie is canon. It's canon to the Jurassic Park series. Yeah, that's what it all comes down to. Oh, this is such a mess, guys. It's such a mess, guys. There's one level and it's canon, and I thank you all so much for sticking around here through all these rants and ravings about canon and what it should and shouldn't be. And what it comes down to is just have fun and just accept whatever you want to accept. Have your own head canon. Do whatever you want because none of it matters. It's all a mess anyway. So, yeah. So, guys, I really appreciate you all watching this video. If you want more, find all the videos here on our channels. We got a lot of live streams. We got a lot of theme park videos, toy reviews, episodes, and stuff like that. We've got all kinds of stuff here. And maybe the better word that Colin should have for it is just canon. Nothing else. There shouldn't be another word. It's canon and it's not canon. Those are the only two things. If something's not canon, if it's soft canon, that means it's not canon, which means it didn't happen. So have fun, everybody. As Cenozoic Artist says, I thank you so much for watching this and enjoy.